Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to our explainer on the ADHD Focus and Balance Workbook Blueprint. If you've ever felt completely, and I mean completely, overwhelmed by one of those standard super text-heavy planners, or if you're just constantly struggling to maintain focus in a world that is literally full of distractions, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're exploring this really unique instructional design blueprint. It's actually built to deliberately bypass that feeling of mental overwhelm and instead unlock focus specifically for ADHD minds. We're going to look at how these specific layout choices, tailored activities, and mindful design can completely transform how you approach your day. I want to point directly to this quote right here, because this empathetic, totally shame-free philosophy is exactly what anchors the entire workbook. It is absolutely crucial to establish this right off the bat. Think about it. We spend so much time fighting our natural wiring, right? Trying to force ourselves into these rigid, neurotypical boxes and then feeling like total failures when it just doesn't work. Well, this blueprint flips the script entirely. It starts from the super empowering premise that your brain is not broken at all, not even a little. It just requires a different set of tools and a different operating environment to really thrive. So, the crucial point is knowing exactly what's coming sets a really structured, calming tone for the mind. Here's our roadmap. We'll start by understanding the ADHD brain, explore designing for ADHD, look at task management, move into routine building, and finally cover brain breaks. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Understanding the ADHD brain. This part completely redefines ADHD. We're tossing out the old idea of it being a lack of intelligence or some character flaw, and instead we're framing it as what it truly is, a fundamentally different operating system. The blueprint points out that this different operating system basically means your brain manages certain things differently, namely focus, motivation, working memory, emotional regulation, and time awareness. Mapping this out is so helpful because it normalizes what can be a really frustrating experience. I mean, it totally validates that reality where, some days you feel absolutely unstoppable, and then other days, just getting started on a simple task feels physically impossible. The key takeaway here? Both of those days are completely normal for this operating system. We're not trying to become someone else. We're just learning how to work with this wiring instead of against it. And working with that wiring means really recognizing the incredible strengths that come with it. ADHD brains are so often naturally creative, intensely curious, highly innovative, and honestly fantastic under pressure. You bring this amazing energy, passion, and these super unique problem-solving skills to the table. Take a second and look at this list. Which of these superpowers do you actually notice in yourself? Because when we start shifting our focus to these strengths, it changes the whole narrative from limitation to absolute potential. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2, Designing for ADHD. This is where the blueprint gets super practical, revealing the exact, strict architecture you need to engage an ADHD brain without setting off that paralyzing sense of overwhelm. Form truly meets function here. This blueprint has some very strict design rules to prevent mental clutter. Notice the constraints we're working with. Exactly one core concept per page. No overcrowding whatsoever. The color palette leans heavily on calming, muted blues, greens, lavender, and beige, all just to soothe the visual field. You'll see generous white space, brief bulleted instructions, and really simple visual icons to guide you. Dense blocks of text? Yeah, we avoid those at all costs. It just makes the whole thing instantly accessible and frankly much easier to digest. And this brilliantly illustrates how that design strategy even trickles down to typography. The blueprint specifically calls for Poppins, which is this great high-contrast font for attention-grabbing headings, and then pairs it with Nunito or Atkinson Hyperlegible for the body text. This isn't just about making it look pretty, right? It's about maximizing readability. It creates this clear visual hierarchy, so your brain instantly knows exactly where to look and what's most important without having to burn any extra energy to figure it out. All right, Section 3, Task Management. Now that we have that calming design architecture in place, we can dive into the practical, highly actionable tools built specifically to conquer task paralysis and really support your working memory. The absolute go-to tool for clearing up mental space is the brain dump. Look, when your working memory is just totally overloaded with this swirling, chaotic to-do list, literally everything feels urgent and impossible. So the rule here is incredibly simple. Empty your mind onto the page, no organizing, no judging, just get it out. Unload every single school assignment, work project, personal thought, and random idea you have. Just transferring it from your head to the paper immediately, and I mean immediately, reduces that heavy cognitive burden. Okay, so once the brain is clear, how do we actually tackle a massive, daunting project? Well, the workbook uses this brilliant concept called the task breakdown maze. It visually walks you through turning one giant, intimidating task into tiny, totally actionable micro steps. So instead of a terrifying item like write essay, the maze starts with step 1, open laptop. Step 2, find file. Step 3, read instructions. Step 4, write the first sentence. See? By treating every turn in the maze as just one tiny, achievable step, it completely bypasses your brain's overwhelm response. Then we have the 5-minute challenge. We all know getting started is notoriously the hardest part for the ADHD brain. So the workbook just poses this simple, enthusiastic question: can you commit to just 5 minutes on one task? Seriously, just 5 minutes. Often, once you just get over that initial painful hurdle of starting, the momentum naturally takes over. And hey, if it doesn't, you still got 5 minutes of solid work done, which is an absolute win in my book. Moving right along to section 4, routine building. Because, let's be real, managing time and tasks is only half the battle. This part really focuses on the workbook's methods for emotional regulation, which is so deeply tied to ADHD, and how to actually build sustainable habits, step by step. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the thought reframe exercise. Emotional dysregulation can so quickly drop us into these negative thought spirals. This tool gives you a beautifully structured way to pause, identify the situation and that specific negative thought, and then actively pivot toward a more helpful thought, followed by just one small action. It essentially trains your brain to interrupt the spiral and gently redirect your focus back to self-compassion and ultimately problem solving. When it comes to habit building, visual tracking is the name of the game. Take a look at this weekly habit tracker. It shows exactly how consistency is built across the days of the week. By checking off incredibly simple things, drinking water, taking medication, maybe doing some light exercise, you get this immediate visual reward. Plus, the blueprint incorporates this 30-day streak builder game where you literally color in squares to celebrate those small victories over time. It turns routine building into a highly visual, genuinely engaging process instead of a chore. I really want to emphatically reinforce this one crucial rule. Progress is always more important than perfection, always. When building routines, the ADHD brain loves to fall into that all-or-nothing trap. You know, if you miss a Tuesday, your brain says, well, the whole week is ruined, might as well give up. Nope. This workbook constantly reminds you that habit building is just about steady growth. It's about making your life feel a little lighter and a little easier, not about flawlessly executing some rigid, impossible schedule. And finally, section 5, the power of brain breaks. In this blueprint, intentional rest and dopamine-boosting activities, they are not treated as a luxury, and they are definitely not a distraction. They are absolutely critical components of doing focused work. Because here's the truth, a tired brain simply cannot focus. So the workbook weaves these very specific types of brain breaks right in between the tasks. We're talking breathing mazes that physically pace your inhales and exhales, gratitude word searches, or maybe a color-by-number geometric illustration. And activities like an easy mini Sudoku, those are actually designed specifically to give you a really satisfying level of concentration, but without triggering any of the frustration. Basically, it's a healthy, structured dopamine boost right when you need it. Tucked inside one of those brain breaks, it's this connect the dots activity where you slowly reveal a growing tree. The workbook shares this fantastic underlying message. Growth happens one small step at a time. It's just such a beautiful, subtle way to remind you, even while you're resting and playing, that all of these tiny actions repeated consistently are what ultimately create real, meaningful change. So, as we wrap up our explainer on the ADHD Focus and Balance Workbook Blueprint, I want to leave you with a really provocative question pulled directly from the workbook's next step word search. Look at everything we've talked about today, the calming design, the brain dumps, those 5-minute challenges. Please do not worry about completely overhauling your entire life right this second. Instead, just ask yourself, based on what you've learned today about how your incredibly unique brain works, what is one next step you can take today?